Hello everyone. So I hope you are doing well. So today we will do in a thinker series that is Margaret Fuller. You can see the time period 1810 to 1850, only 14 years of life, right? But this figure is very important to understand the feminist epistemological development or the discourse of feminism, right? So when we look into the Margaret Fuller's life, so she also born into US, right? US, Massachusetts, right? And the place from where she belongs, where she born, this is a time of this is a hub of intellectual activity, hub of intellectual activity during the movement, during the transformative eras in history, transformative era in history, like so that is important, because of the what we can say after the US freedom, right? US freedom or independence, right? So when we look into her family background of birth or her father's influence on her development, or about her the development of her self, the compatibility or self learning, right? So her father was a state representative, right? State representative and congressman. See how see you will see here when I'll give you her ideas about her background, so you can understand, you will trace the fact that even although she is coming from from a background or from a family where her father is a state representative and congressman, but still she was restricted because of her gender, right? She was restricted for some of the roles because of her gender, and how this has impacted her life, right? So she was denied to Harvard, and her father played a very important role in her shaping, right, her ideas. So she was denied to the Harvard, but which were close to the women on that period, on that time, right? So she received, but still she learned a lot of, and she received a lot of classical training, which you usually on that period of time we have seen, which was reserved for boys only, right? So she has some of the privilege, what we can understand, because none of them, you can say, some of the name, right, that Firestone or somehow another revolutionary, when we will look into that, women are, even in Indian context of Indian feminism or the Indian independence movement or the colonial time period, when you look towards, when you look into the when you look to the name of the Indian female who is coming on to the main front, right, or mainstream society, to bring changes, to put some efforts, to put some revolutionary approach, these women are affluent from their background, because we cannot ignore their background, right? Despite of their works towards the development of the society, the back strata, but still because they had to more or less successful to any extent. I'm not quantifying their their works or their activism, but the point here is that the privileges from where they are coming, no one from the lower class, no one from the the poor class, right, those who are suffering from the food, they cannot come forward. Even in the case of men's revolution as well, is this same into the case of females revolution, these all women are coming from a rich and somehow good background, at least, or the minimal background, right? So that's what important for the awareness as well. So when we look back into the society, when we look into the today's perspective, what the women's studies teach us, what's we are learning here, right? So when we look into the society back strata, right, or lower class people, right, or the problem of caste identity, what we are suffering into the context of India specifically, right? So the problem here is about their awareness, which cannot become, which cannot truly achieved or accomplished, due to the lack of the education and the same privileges, the same background, because we are standing on a level, we are having a platform, right, from where we can talk, from where we can think, but they don't have platform, they're not pursuing that, right? So there is no point of uh, asking them, right? Despite instead of that, we need to ask ourselves, those who can think, those who can see, those who can watch, right? So that's what I mean. I'm just sharing an ideas what I have learned through understanding women studies in past years, right? What's the role? See, there are a lot of questions coming into the themes, that what is the idea of, the concept of women studies, or what is the center theme, why we need to learn women studies, what is the importance of women studies. So there you need to understand the problems, right? Through this thinkers ideas, you just have to read in between the line, right? You have to understand what I'm talking, right? You have to analyze by your own self, by your own thinking. After listening of half an hour, 1 hour lecture, you just have to think about it. If you want to grab it, if you have to, see, there's a very what we can say, if you want to crack any kind of exam, you just have to understand the academia as well, right? You have to understand the depth. Getting my point? So that is important. Now let us come back to the topic. That is, I'm talking about her father's influence. Fuller become, when we look into the Fuller become very fluent in several languages, instead of the restrictions what she had faced, but she become very fluent in several languages, right? For instance, classical literature, right? Especially if you want, especially Latin and Greek text, Latin and Greek text, right? This learning, this language, this multilingual, language which she has adopted or she has learned, this shaped her literary ideas, literary development, and political thinking as well, right? So the second thing is that when we look into her integration into the literary and intellectual circles, so what we will find out that Fuller become a key figure in the transcendentalism, or the transcendent movement, right? With the same as immersion, the figure like immersion and Thoreau, we have seen Mercer and Thoreau, what we have seen, right? They both serve as, and also Fuller had served as the first editor of the journal, the primary journal, right? That is the Dial. Please mark it, right? Please mark it. This is very important, right? So, and that is important. Also, in C organized conversations for women, that is Boston conversations, right? Which are now recognized as what we can say as today's, when we look into the today's or second wave of feminism after the proper